Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mārtiņš. I'm absolutely happy to welcome you in conference CNECT Riga 2015. There is an exclusive public in the room and more exclusive public in online, straume.lmt.lv. So hello everyone who is watching us on broadcast. And indeed, in our century of dynamics and technologies, this is quite self-understandable that you can succeed only working in teams. So this conference gonna be quite interesting one when we have brought together a team who is in fact in charge of development of digital in public service and public service within digital. So they're gonna be quite busy, quite interesting, because we have all stakeholders of policies, implementations, and of course, privates who are always really interested in. If we are looking on the agenda, then agenda today is quite tight. The good idea is about coffee breaks. We have 2 of them, and lunch in the middle. That's good. We're gonna start our day with keynotes when we have headliners and main drivers of European policy from perspective of digital within public service. Then we're gonna continue with coffee. I mentioned that. That's good. Then we have a digital by default issue and topic, which is gonna be followed by panel discussions. Panel discussions today gonna be organized in very unique way. You have to wait till that, and then you're gonna see this will be extraordinary mode how to organize panel discussion to underline the importance of working together in the field to succeed. After that, we have a light lunch, and after light lunch, we have a light second part of the day with the private-public cooperation in efficient public service delivery. Again, the panel discussion, and then we're gonna finish the day with like dessert or something very maybe provocative, maybe critical, maybe definitely very interesting Tavi Kotka with the keynote speech at the end of the day about design and delivery in public service, Estonia's perspective. And then the final closing remarks and panel discussion at the end of the day on delivery. Definitely, first things first, technical things. All of you have green badges on your necklace, yes, green badges, and there are quite important information. The first one is Wi-Fi, digital by default. There is possibility to join the Wi-Fi, and Wi-Fi's login and password is seen there. The second important thing is Moderator, that's me, Mārtiņš, with my personal phone number, which means any moment when you want, you can send the question in short text message to this number, and definitely I'm gonna read this, I'm gonna introduce this during the panel sessions. So we have very tight schedule, which means that there is no large room for eye-to-eye Q&A sessions, but if you're gonna send your question, whatever this is, of course, about digital or public service, then we're gonna introduce that in our public debates. And the third possibility to raise the question, raise the voice, is through the Twitter, hashtag CNECT Riga 2015. Just write your question or remark, and also we're gonna read this and we're gonna bring this out, and you as a public will be introduced. The same you can use in your broadcast possibility through the Twitter, write your questions, and the feeling will be that you are here together with us. So we are ready to start our wonderful day, and we're gonna discuss a lot today, design, delivery of digital in public service, but definitely for the speakers to deliver the best speech, we have to warmly welcome them and give some kind of morning type energy. So ladies and gentlemen, please, with applause and warm welcomings, I'm asking on the stage Signe Bāliņa, President of Latvian Information and Communication Technology Association Latvia. Applause.
Good morning. Distinguished participants of the conference, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the conference CNECT Riga 2015. This is the third time that we are meeting together in such a conference, but this conference is a special one because today's conference is under the umbrella of the Latvian Presidency of the Council of European Union and in accordance with Latvian priorities. And one of such priorities, of course, is the digital one. I'm glad that CNECT Riga conference has gathered together more than 200 representatives from 20 countries. And we are from public sector, from private sector, as well as from civil society. The main target of the conference, as Mārtiņš also mentioned before, is to explore and to discuss opportunities and challenges related to public sector modernization by using digital technologies towards developing and delivering more effective and efficient public services. Some people might say that e-government and public sector modernization are topics just for civil servants, academics, and think tanks. I do not agree. Today I believe that this is a very practical topic and should be important for everyone. E-government and effective public sector are absolutely fundamental tools for unleashing EU's potential in the 21st century, and it is a vital part of any country's plan for development. Through your participation at this conference, we can foster developing issues to be explored more and to be actualized in the public sector modernization debate, policy debate. It is essential to explore how ICT can help public administration to improve design and delivery of public services. The argument for necessity of public services modernization is people who demand up-to-date and effective public services. We have got to translate words into deeds. And we can't just talk about being efficient and effective. We have to look for best practice in our countries and to share our knowledge, our solution, our ideas. Progress can only be achieved when there is relevant IT knowledge and expertise in civil service and strong will and dedication among politicians. In conclusions, I would like to say that modern public services is a prerequisite for successful nations. And it is important for every citizen and even more for the businesses to grow and remain competitive. I hope that this conference will be an excellent opportunity toward building modern, collaborative and user-friendly public services all around Europe. And I wish you high productive and useful discussions today, and we will look forward to the outcomes and recommendations from this event. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Signe Bāliņa. And we continue. Not every day we have a possibility to listen general directors. Today we have a wonderful possibility to listen two of them. And we're going to start with the public sector modernization issue from the perspective of digital single market strategy and other initiatives of European Commission. So please welcome with applause Robert Madelin, please. Director General for Communications, Networks, Content and Technology of the European Commission.
So, ladies and gentlemen, both here in the room and on the web stream, welcome. The introduction from Mārtiņš reminded me of a primary school joke from when I was in England, where there was a famous seaside town called Blackpool, and the first prize was a week in Blackpool, and the second prize was 2 weeks in Blackpool. So I think with two Directors General of the European Commission, you have won second prize this morning. But I would like to give the first prize, before I begin talking about public sector modernization, to Arnis and the Latvian Presidency team, because not only is this an inspiring venue, the National Library, but it's been a huge pleasure to work with our Latvian colleagues over the last 2 years, I think, working very seriously around all aspects of the presidency. So it's a huge pleasure as we get close to the end, but this is not the apotheosis because there's a bigger digital event even yet in June here, to say a big thank you and congratulations to our hosts. Ladies and gentlemen, what can digital bring to public services and what should public services bring to digital? That's exactly the question. And I have 10 serious backward-looking theoretical slides which I will share with you as background also for study, but also towards the end a couple of others trying to look to the future. Because we are in the middle of a process of change in our framework for European cooperation, and it affects not just the public sector space, but everything. A year ago, the European Parliament elections were launched under the slogan, "This time it's different." And 6 months ago, President Juncker inaugurated his 5-year term, really just 6 months ago, and his slogan as well was, "This time it's different." So today, at lunchtime, Vice President Ansip will present to the media and to European citizens a new digital single market strategy for the next 5 years. And the question I think that we need to discuss in our e-government, interoperability, digital public goods communities is how does this new vision imply differences in the way digital is being done for citizens and companies in every country within the European Union space. And I think that's the interesting question where today will bring some answers, but it's also the beginning of a conversation. And the conversation, we think, has to be quite broad. I have a lot of respect, the respect of ignorance for those who do the digital jobs in public service as well as everywhere else. And I think that the European space is one where those who know better than people like me can be enabled to come together to do that work. The framework within which we try to do our day-to-day tasks is, however, crucial. You have to do the right thing for the right reason. And I think that what I've put up here as a slide is indicative of what we sometimes call European values, although when you go to a local town hall, they're also the values of the local mayor in our democracies across Europe. And openness is the key. And at the key center of open government is an overlapping series of challenges, none of which any human society has successfully met yet. But I think what I have learned in the last 5 years is that with digital, as well as with our human values, we can do better in all of these spaces, above all in open data, because data is truly transformed by digital tools, but also in terms of opening up our processes and our services so that citizens and companies benefit. As you all know better than me, because many of you have been active on it, the twin tracks of the e-government action plan and the interoperability work has been trying to give reality to this vision over the last decade. And in all of those spaces, I think it's fair to say we have been making progress. There are two which I want to focus on today, which you will find again in the digital single market strategy. Empowering citizens and business. So this is a user-centric set of activities. We're not doing it for us, we're doing it for them. And if they don't notice or don't feel that it's good for them, we haven't succeeded. And the second is providing as a network of European-wide tool makers the key tools and enablers that will put within reach of every public service provider at every level around Europe the toolbox they need to deliver the job. When we reviewed last year our progress in this action plan, we certainly discovered that open data was crucial. I've already talked about that. We thought that if citizens, and there I mean also corporate citizens, are the core beneficiary, they should also be a louder voice in the process. We thought that interoperability and reuse of PSI remained an unachieved goal. And we noted that while many member states, as well as the Commission, as well as the European Council in 2013, have talked about the once-only principle, we're still only part way there. So what's going to happen next? The challenges are many. I won't dwell on that. And the key areas I think that today and going forward we need to do more thinking about would start with open data. This is an area where the European Union, all member states, the G7, maybe it was the G8 at the time, but the G7 now, everybody is innovating and talking about what open data can do. As my commissioners say to me, open, whether it's open data, open science, open innovation is fine, but we have to make sure that it's open in a safe way. So it has to respect citizens' right to control the data they own. It has to respect companies' need to protect the business secrets and the business innovation within the stuff that they're doing. But we believe that in this area, a stronger commitment to open data across the different activities of government CIOs and public service providers can only be a good thing. So this is something where we've begun talking, but we're not yet doing it as rational, as vibrantly as we should. Open services at the EU level, I mean, open services, accessible services, it's what citizens and companies need. Firstly, they want to find the service they need at the moment they want it in the place they are. And secondly, they want it to work. And thirdly, if it can cost less for them as taxpayers, that's good. At the EU level, we are not primarily user-focused service providers. So what the European space can contribute to your endeavors in this field is to enable the service providers at national or local level to link up, to learn together, to share tools rather than having to rebuild them 20 or 30 times, and to develop and share broader toolkits. So this area, I think, as well, can be crucial in a user-focused way. And open process, doing government better and in a more accountable way, is definitely something that in Brussels we believe in, but having been a public servant in 3 or 4 different places around Europe, we believe in it, but we never quite managed to do it right. So again, opening our processes is a huge challenge. It's one on which the papers that the European Commission will release today will not say much, but in 2 weeks' time, first Vice President Timmermans, so the Dutch Commissioner, will be bringing forward a very ambitious package which at least will say what the European Commission thinks we should be doing in terms of more transparency and accountability. So there's a lot going on, and I will just leave it at that on that slide. But we then come to the question, what will be next? And this slide is not complete or fully accurate because we deliberately didn't try to keep it up to date as different commissioners brought their ideas to the table. So regard it as a placeholder for what you'll see at lunchtime. Let me say a few words then about what you'll see at lunchtime. The first message, I think, coming out of the public service part of the digital single market is that it is no longer a discrete bubble within the whole digital agenda. In very important areas, standards, interoperability, data ownership, data access, data flow, we see, I think, not just that the public sector is connected to the rest of the world because we provide services, but also that the challenges we need to fix to deliver e-government and digital public goods are the same challenges being faced by citizens and companies. And therefore, we can only find a good, efficient fix on the issues I've just listed by working openly and cooperatively between private as well as public actors in order to have a single vision of what works for data flow and a single vision of what works for cloud and a single vision of what works for interoperability. And that's a huge challenge because in the public sector we are very accustomed to thinking we're special and different. And so we're entitled to have special and different rules and to make them only among ourselves. But I think you will see as a thread through the action points in the DSM a need for us as a community to work more, not just with private sector providers of our tools, but with citizens and companies as beneficiaries to make sure that that works. Secondly, we will be suggesting a strong commitment on the once-only principle. That was a sort of dolphin which surfaced briefly in the European Council debate in December 2013. It's been under the surface for a while, now it's coming back. And I don't know yet what that should mean, because it means something for European institutions as institutions, but what can the European space do to help member states and public institutions at other levels who are working themselves on this? Public sector modernisation as a goal, as I said, remains a goal, and alongside that there need to be a new European interoperability framework and a new e-government action plan from 2016 onwards. And if there's a last point I would make, without trying to anticipate what Stephen will say, the digital single market vision is more focused and more rapid in its cycle time than the digital agenda we adopted 5 years ago. And I think that will also have implications for the way we do another e-government action plan and the next, even if it's expanded, interoperability framework. And let me say a word about that. So in 2010, we launched a flagship Europe 2020 project called the Digital Agenda for Europe, and it had 101 actions, and when we reviewed it, it got to 150 actions. So it was a very broad, it was a flagship, it was a big sort of aircraft carrier. And at the time that was necessary because in 2010, and I remember I was there launching it, people said, oh, it's interesting, nice, it's good that Europe 2020 has a digital action plan, but they weren't very sure what it was for. If you come forward to last year around the EP elections and the selection of President Juncker and his initial speeches, you can see that almost everybody now gets what digital is and how important it is for our society. And for everybody in this room, you'll say, yeah, but surely they had it in 2010. The answer is no, the real world didn't have it in 2010. I think it's fair to say President Juncker is the first really digital Commission president in the sense that there's digital change everywhere and not just a vertical pillar of digital thinking. And in those circumstances, instead of having long Chinese menu programs of what needs to be done, I like Chinese food, so I don't want to be derogatory about that, but you go to a Chinese restaurant, there's a very long menu. Instead of needing that, what we need now is a few things that we all agree need to be done now quickly together, and then we need to do them. And I think that the change of tone is what this commission promised, but it's so surprising to the observers that what you'll see is they'll count the number of actions and they'll say, oh, there are 25 actions instead of 150. The commission has lost its nerve, or Europe has lost its nerve, and the answer is no. Europe has matured, and I hope we in this space can mature so that what we will get is a stronger commitment to actually do something and a more focused approach to what we actually need to do. So that's a challenge. The papers that come out of Brussels today won't provide the answer. They will set the challenge, and it will be up to us in the next 6 months to fix it. And I think that within the next 6 months, one of the questions that you can ask looking forward is not just how do I feel reading the papers today in the light of today's conversations, but also what does the culminating point of the Latvian presidency, the June European Council, say about the digital space, and how does that support an ambitious approach for this area of work. But to conclude, I think that this community, these communities present in this conversation today, but also the work yesterday here in Riga, have come a long way in the last decade. We're now at a place where we need each other less to talk about the general framework, but much more to do some real things together in a more rapid way and in a way that our citizens, both individuals and companies, can recognize as useful for them. So the challenges have never been bigger, but in a way, we have a more solid platform on which to work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Robert. And indeed, the questions are already coming in during the short text messages, and mainly all the questions are considering the happening in lunchtime, so that's quite logical. The next one we are welcoming here on the stage is Stephen Quest with the issue Public Sector Modernization and Interoperability, Director General for Informatics and European Commission. Please, applause.
Hello, good morning everyone. Welcome. Thank you for the welcome. It's great to be here, this wonderful location. And just to repeat Robert's thanks to the Presidency and to Arnis in particular for the fantastic organization. It's really great to be here. If I follow Robert's joke, I'm the second prize. Huh? So I'll try and live up to that expectation. What I'd like to do now is really to give you the other side of the coin of what Robert's been talking about and to drill down a little bit into a bit more of the detail. And Mārtiņš said that the theme of the conference is all about team, and that's in a sense very good because I'm talking about interoperability, and that's about joining things up and about working together. And so what I want to focus on is how we can use interoperability really as an instrument to help drive forward public sector modernization and to help drive forward this digital single market. And really, I was told this was easy. Huh?
Well, it should happen. It's happening.
Fantastic. There we are. So we've heard Robert talking already about this vision of the future of public services based on these principles. And how does this link with interoperability? I mean, in a sense, there we are. Interoperability, I'm going to enjoy this. Interoperability is the glue, really, that we think helps to join these different ideas together in a more coherent and cohesive way. So that's why interoperability, which is in itself a rather difficult word to say and a rather dry concept to get your heads around, is, I think, fundamental if we want to make the progress that we're trying to make towards this more open and joined up way of doing things. Now, if we drill down into the detail a little bit more to see how it fits together, fundamentally, on the left-hand side, you've got the principles, the kind of things we want to be doing. And on the right-hand side, we've got the kind of impacts that we want to be getting for our societies. And in the middle, we've got the bridge. And the thing that's bridging all of this is fundamentally interoperability. It's about interconnecting things, and it's about finding ways of sharing information. And if we can do that, then we will start to really build this bridge between the ambitions that we have and the impacts we want to have on society. Now, this fits with the big picture that Robert's already talked about. I won't dwell on this anymore. We will see in the news later on today exactly what's in this strategy. But what's clear is that a modern public administration has to be a key contributor to this digital single market. And that modernizing public services has to be a key piece of the picture. And if we look at the key areas of focus that we expect to see in this strategy that emerges, these have already been pre-announced as the broad lines. We see that the third big theme that emerges there, creating a European digital economy with growth potential, is really where we see the major contribution of interoperability coming through. It's going to be explicitly included in there. I hope, and it better be now. And I think that that's really where we see the strategic driving force of interoperability around these issues of data, cloud, and many other things. Now, if we look at the different pieces, it's a bit like a jigsaw, and you can see many, many different aspects for which interoperability is going to be rather strategic. We can see it in the data economy. We can see it in big data, we can see it in cloud computing, e-health, intelligent transport systems, cybersecurity. I mean, I can go on, I won't, but I could. And what I want to do really is not go through that entire list, but to focus on interoperability in the public sector and to show how that can be a driver for change. Perhaps it's useful, before getting into that, to take a little look at where we are, because we have some interesting data points there to share with you about the current state of interoperability across the European Union. This is driven by the work we do through the monitoring observatory. And what you see in this slide is that in terms of the theory, we're actually doing very well, because we have this European interoperability framework, which is in place. And you see that on the right-hand side of the slide, there's the member states who've been working at this for slightly longer, and you have some new entries coming on the left-hand side. But you see the statistics are relatively positive in terms of member states who share a common understanding of the different structural elements of interoperability, and that we've got a roughly sort of already 70% alignment between these national interoperability frameworks and these common European principles. So the principles are there and they're in place. And this is an extremely strong starting point. And I think that that's already a very big step forward and a big success that we've managed to achieve so far. That's the theory, yeah? Now, in the practice, when we look about what this means in practice in terms of implementation, we see that at the moment, the numbers look less good. This is perhaps inevitable because we're in a process of change, and we have different degrees of maturity between some of the member states. But the challenge, therefore, for us is to move from the principle and the theory into the practice and the actual implementation of this framework at national level. Because when we compare these two, you see the lag factor there is quite significant. Now, one of the issues that we face there is improving the way in which we monitor this. And it's an issue that my colleague Margarita will talk about in more detail in her presentation later on today. And without dwelling any more on these numbers, I think that the key point to retain is that we have this agreement in principle. The framework is necessary. It's a necessary condition to make all of this work, but it's not a sufficient condition. We also need to work on the practical implementation on the ground. And that's one of the reasons why we want to come back to the European interoperability framework in the context of the DSM strategy to look at how we can further push it forward and root it in practical implementation across the European Union. Now, if we draw from all of this the lesson that interoperability is very important and good and nice to have, but quite difficult to do in practice, we can perhaps look at it as a jigsaw puzzle where we have lots of different pieces, which we very much want to join together, and which is quite a difficult thing to achieve. So we're trying to move from this kind of situation to a situation where we've joined things up in a more coherent way. And that's very much where the work that we do in the European Commission through, for example, the ESA program, Interoperability Solutions Between Public Administrations, not easy to say, but it's an important program. And we use that program precisely to try to provide the glue to join together these different bits of the jigsaw puzzle and to connect the dots in a more coherent way. Now, what are the conditions for making this happen? Technology is important, but I think it's a mistake to focus exclusively on the technological sides. If we want interoperability to work, we have to look beyond technology and also look at the other layers that are important, the semantic layer, the legal layer, the organizational layer. Because only if we work on these 4 different layers are we actually going to make effective progress on the ground. And even that's not enough, because there are other conditions that we need to work on and that need to be in place if we're going to make this work. I've listed some of them here. It's around collaboration, because we need to get different parts of different administrations working together. It's around sharing clear frameworks, because if we don't have a clear framework, we don't know where we are and where we're going. It's around streamlining. It's around knowing where we are and where we want to go. And it's around leveraging instruments so that we move from the small-scale tests and pilots up into the mainstream implementation of solutions. And the key thing there, I think, and the key word there is holistic. We need a holistic approach in which everything is joined together. And this is very much what we're trying to promote through the ESA program, and present ESA as a holistic answer to interoperability. And on this slide, you see the key aspects of what we're trying to do in ESA. And at the top, you've fundamentally got, if you like, the rules and the framework, the kind of the common rules and principles and framework that we're trying to put in place to enable effective interoperability to happen. Then on the left-hand side, we've got the mapping exercise, because if we don't map it, we don't know where we are, and we can't really join things up because it's just a mess. And on the right-hand side, we've got, if you like, the utilities, the actual tools and the kind of things we want to be using to join stuff up. And each of these different aspects is crucial, because if we don't have them in place, it won't work. And ESA attempts to cover the full spectrum of these activities. If you like, you can try and think about this as well in terms of city planning. It's an interesting analogy where, you know, in city planning, you need an overarching approach and you need some overall rules and frameworks. And you also need ways of deploying public utilities, which may have their own specificities. The gas is not the water, and you don't really want to mix the two up. But the gas does need to know where the water is, and they need to better talk to each other in some ways, otherwise you're going to have real problems. So what we're trying to do is to join up these dots in a more holistic way and move through the planning, the mapping and the planning, through the deployment and the communication. And if we can get all of those bits joined up, then we make progress. And this is very much what the different aspects of the ESA program and the reference architecture and the cartography are aiming to do. So these are all necessary conditions to achieving effective interoperability at European level. There are also some broader issues that we can look at which are important, some of which Robert has already touched on. If we look upstream, one of the other things we need to get right is looking at the impact of legislation when it's in the pipeline and before it emerges. And so one of the things that you will see coming from the Commission quite soon is a further reinforcement of the work on better regulation and the tightening of what we call a sort of digital check, in a sense, and making sure that the legislative proposals coming out of the Commission are digitally aware and don't rely on paper-based solutions, which are not necessarily the right answer for the 21st century. So there's an increasing focus on getting digital right upstream, and there's also a focus on the downstream aspects. And that's really around leveraging what we have beyond the specific programs that we have like ESA. So if we have solutions that work, how do we pump them into other parts of the European ecosystem, like the economic semester, the structural funds, the regional funds, and all this kind of stuff? And that's where I think there is a real gain to be had, because that's fundamentally where the big money is. ESA is a small sort of seed money program, but if we can identify the things that we need to do and then pump them into the big mega programs where the money is, then we can start to have a serious impact across the piece. And that's very much, if you like, the move from sort of city planning up to managing a capital city or countrywide planning. Now, all of this will continue, and we are in the process of now negotiating the ESA Square program, which is the replacement of ESA, and this should come on stream at the beginning of next year. It'll run for 5 years with a budget of 130 million euros, which is a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money compared to the money you have in the regional funds. So, you know, it's seed money in that sense. Now, one of the new features of ESA Square is an enhanced focus on citizens and moving beyond administration and pushing into cooperation between citizens and businesses. So this broader focus is also part of what Robert was talking about, trying to get exploit the potential now to push out the digital single market in all of its different aspects. Here are some of the areas of focus of the new ESA Square program. I'm not going to go through all of these in detail. I will pick up one issue that Robert mentioned as well, which is the European Interoperability Framework. I touched on it earlier as well. We think this is absolutely fundamental to setting the scene and to getting things in place. And I think that you will see, coming out of the Commission quite soon, a focus on revising and further tightening and making more effective the European Interoperability Framework. Because without that, without extending it and revising it, we think we will be missing one key piece of the jigsaw puzzle. But all of the things on this slide, including the leveraging, which I've emphasized a lot, seem to me to be very, very important in actually getting the kind of progress that we want to get to. Now, if I look beyond all of this and to conclude, perhaps look inside the Commission a bit. What are we doing? Because it's all very well me preaching to you about all the things that you should be doing and that we should be doing together. But what is the Commission itself as an administration actually doing to lead by example? And we've been looking at that quite a lot in this new Commission with this new focus on digital. And you will see an increasing focus in the Commission on trying to lead by example, become a focus of best practice, whether it's more use of e-invoicing, more use of e-procurement, more use of e-signatures. And one thing that I'm particularly proud of, the promotion of paperless meetings. And I hope Murphy is not in this room because Murphy's Law is always present in the world of IT, and I haven't got any wood to touch at the moment. But as I stand here before you, speaking here, in Brussels, logically, the European Commissioners are meeting in the college meeting, as they do each Wednesday, to adopt this digital single market strategy. And they are doing so, at least those of them who wish to, in a paperless way, because when he came to visit us in December, Vice President Ansip asked me to enable him by the 6th of May to participate in the college meetings in a paperless way using his tablet. And we had 4 months to do that. We have done it, I hope. At least I tested it before I came up here and it was working. So as of today, the European Commission joins a relatively small but elite band of public administrations in Europe where the politicians can participate in their weekly meetings and adopt things without any paper if they so wish. This is one of the small ways in which we're trying to lead by example. It's a small piece in a much bigger picture. But I think it's a good sign of the times that we're able to do that, and we've been able to do that in quite a fast way. So that's really what I wanted to share with you today, and to try and set the scene for the further discussions around interoperability. If you wish to know more, as always, there is a website to look at. In this case, it's the Join Up website, which is a very, very vibrant place to go and find all kinds of information. Everything you ever wanted to know about interoperability and never dared ask is on this website. So please do explore it. And with that, I wish to thank you very much and look forward to the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen Quest. And yes, again, indeed, Stephen, you did some really good morning energizing, in fact, because when you started to speak about seed money, half of the room woke up. And when you mentioned mega money and mega projects, that all of them were like, yay, it's becoming really interesting. And it's becoming really interesting because we are mixing in this conference together industry, private, public sector, and as a bridge for the industry and public serves also Latvian Information Technology Cluster. So please, Elmārs Gengers, Chairman of the Board, Latvian Information Technology Cluster, with issue and topic cooperation between industry and public administrations toward provision of better public policy and services. Elmārs, please, are you here? Yes, wonderful.
Good morning, everyone. I happen to be first a speaker from the industry, but luckily not the only one. And I always appreciated opportunities to have these forums where both sides are represented at the table and committed for improvement. And I would like to speak not about technology, like I should be, but more about challenging the way we do. And we have to acknowledge that public sector and industry in European countries are still divided by, I would say figuratively, by wall. RFPs are sent over and responses to them are thrown over again. And while ensuring an equal competition and trying to build something meaningful and sustainable, we're actually doing it in a quite old-fashioned way. And that's not possible because cooperation, exchange of information, is that makes a difference. And first of all, industry is more than interested to be a proactive player to ensure transparent IT procurements. And we want clear rules from public sector so that we can provide it with the best and most appropriate solutions. And we want to work hand in hand with state institutions to create a mutual vision first, so that all parties are committed and then move forward. And we should concentrate on the entire process rather than IT itself, because it's my firm belief that savings are in new processes rather than just saving on IT costs. And my dream is that one day we will be ready to take off E from services, because e-services would be so natural and easy to use that it will be just a regular service, not outside of the normal one. And usually, in procurement, government dictates the way and solution. But if we need to make a difference, say, modernize company reporting to government, we need to involve more than one party. Citizens, companies, IT industry. Because unless we work in a networked way, we are optimizing only one part of the process and not the entire one. Let's look at the process as a whole, co-innovate, adapt legislation if needed, and only then go with procurement or just provisioning of services. And I would like to propose a few things how to do that. To enable co-innovation, let's look how architects have been doing for quite a long time. They have sketch competition in front of client, they pitch their ideas, and the best one gets an opportunity to proceed. It's not good only from competition point of view. For clients, and this time the public sector, but it's good also for industry, because so we promote the best way of doing things, the most appropriate tools and technologies. And once again, get mutual vision first, make all parties commitment, and only then move forward. Not just we're getting an RFP where we are just set to do all things. But that's not only one part of the coin. There is another. Sometimes we disconcentrate on the major thing, on solving challenges, but doing a lot of technical stuff. Therefore, I would suggest that the most general things are put in the guidelines, like security requirements, interconnectivity details, maybe some user experience, design rules, so that they are more general to the sector itself or to certain groups or sectors in the public administration area. By knowing those general rules, we, industry, can come up with ideas and solutions to satisfy not only those, but also, most important, that actually public has to come with needs, and let us experts to come with the best solution for that. And therefore, we can concentrate more on these real challenges rather than doing those technological alignments. And then we can make a real difference. I know that in Europe it's maybe not a good tone to speak about Silicon Valley, but I would. Because there are a lot of things we can learn from that phenomenon. And I always believed that taxpayers' money spent on few pilots, and it should be okay to fail maybe in 9 times out of 10, to finally come with long-term solutions that pays off more than clumsy, large systems that needs to be rebuilt after a couple of years. Try things, fail fast, and go for results. And if you fail fast, you can afford to fail more times because there are no single point of failure. But once you succeeded, implement it with a clock speed. And that's what makes the Silicon Valley phenomenon that damn successful. There's always good things which appear out of blue, and they quickly grasped and implemented. We in Europe sometimes do an opposite way. We create framework, we create policy, and then we try to implement, we try to guess what's going next, rather than doing it in a more natural way, in a more appropriate way, I would say. And maybe one more thing. If we look at so-called, at least by media in Latvia, failed IT projects, we can spot one very common problem. Ministries do not have enough experts. And that's not because they are not talented. They simply lack all kinds of experts they need. And actually, I would suggest that we have one center of excellence where ministries can submit their needs and rationale for IT systems, and they are adjusted to common standards and put on the market to pitch for the best solutions or best ideas to come in. And I believe that this type of thinking exists in many European countries. And this is the right common approach for making IT in European Union competitive and digital single market policy in work. But of course, I don't insist that we do all at once. Doing brick by brick, doing it in a networked way, trying out of the vision, it's less likely to fail. We need to get public sector and industry at one table and on one side of the wall if we want to compete globally and if we want to make our lives of our citizens much better. So let's co-innovate before proceed big thing. And thank you for attention.
Thank you very much, Elmārs. And taking those walls down, that's what we're gonna do definitely in panel discussion time on the one stage altogether. But before that, I'm happy to introduce and welcome here partly the host of all this conference and big investor from perspective of energy in this event. And Mr. Arnis Daugulis, Deputy State Secretary, Ministry of Environmental Protection and Regional Development, Latvia. Applause, please, Arnis Daugulis.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I will start with apologies. The title of my presentation might be a little bit misleading. You know how it works with the conferences like this. The speakers are pressed for titles a long time before the conference. And honestly, 3 months before the conference, I had no idea what I'm going to talk about. So I just gave this, which is one of the focuses of Latvian digital priority, public sector modernization by use of digital technologies. But now, after 4 months of presidency, I've recognized that most of the times when I was talking about this particular topic, the talk sooner or later was diverging to the not so technical matters, because if we really want to succeed in public sector modernization, we should talk about digital transformation of society. And actually, the journey will end only at the moment when we stop talking about digital. Just because this is so natural, we are breathing it like an air. We are not speaking about the air when we are breathing. So this is the final stage we need to reach. But so my talk today will not be about technologies, but it will be about leadership. Because if we talk about digital transformation, you cannot do it without leadership. Transformation means change. Change only can be done if there is a strong and dedicated leadership. And talking about leadership, as Robert and Stephen mentioned, the European Commission is doing a good job, leading by example. But definitely we need more. We need digital-savvy prime ministers, ministers, secretaries of state, senior and junior officials of public sector. And by leadership, I mean not people who are just talking about digital. Because digital is a hype, and nowadays most of the people have learned the basic vocabulary. Everyone can talk about digital, but what makes a politician or a civil servant a leader is the readiness to act for digital Europe and to drive changes for digital Europe. And to my mind, there are two most important areas where the leadership is very needed. And this is mindset, and this is architecture. Architecture, again, according to Stephen's talk, as a precondition for interoperable cross-border services. So let me illustrate the mindset issue with non-IT example from Latvia. Last year, we have done a lot of experimenting in the area of customer care centers, testing the idea that it makes sense for the people if we bring together customer care people from different institutions under one roof. And our pilots actually show that people like it, but it's not so easy because it requires good infrastructure. And if there's no infrastructure, then there are investments which are needed to create it, so it gets complicated. But in one day, I received a phone call from the director of State Revenue Service. And the message was, we have done a good job in digitization of state revenue services, state revenue services, making them digital. And in the result, we don't need so much space at our own customer care center, brand new building. So this is an opportunity for you. We have a space, we have ready infrastructure. All you need to do is to bring other institutions who are willing to create a one-stop agency with no extra costs. Ready, we can move on and get it done tomorrow, more or less. But so it was so far so good. We met, we made a plan, let's go. But then there was a meeting of legal experts. And guess what? crossed hands and poker faces, and a long list of reasons why we actually cannot do it. And, well, it took for us, instead of just moving in a week or so, 3 months of bureaucracy and paperwork. But, well, please don't get me wrong. I still show this example as a good example of the good leadership, because despite of these 3 months of paperwork, it was done in the end, thanks to the persistence and motivation from the, well, Director of State Revenue Service. And still 3 months for a hardcore bureaucrat is the speed of light, actually. But my point is that this shows the prevailing culture at public administration, and this prevailing culture is the culture of no. Well, Latvia has some history of living in a country called Soviet Union. Maybe someone remembers that country still. And there was an old anecdote from Soviet Union and from Brezhnev times. And it says, every initiative must be punished. And sometimes I have a feeling that the spirit of Mr. Brezhnev is very much alive still in good old Europe. Look at well, Europe is too risk-averse, and we are too used to our comfortable lives, and the challengers are not welcome. Think of companies like Uber or other companies which are coming to Europe with disruptive business models of sharing economy. There are exceptions, but the typical European reaction to newcomers like that are ban them. Don't let them come and ruin our traditional businesses. We have to protect our companies who are relying on traditional business models. But the thing is that by protecting our companies, we only make them weaker and more vulnerable to global competition. So this is about changing mindset of people, and we have to work hard for the culture of innovation in public administration, the culture which allows to challenge the status quo, try out new approaches, and also tolerate mistakes. Elmārs referred to Silicon Valley and fail fast idea. But this is a mindset thing. Also, public administration needs some toleration for mistakes, because if you do something, mistakes are inevitable. But the key is that, well, try, learn, try again. That's the way how innovations happen. And again, without leadership, you cannot do it. The other point, architecture. As I already said, a very important precondition for interoperability. And referring again to Stephen, European interoperability framework and architecture, good starting point. But the key is to get this architecture implemented. Latvia is currently following the journey of architecture. We have done our homeworks. The architectural principles have been approved by our government. And now we are struggling towards implementation of these architecture principles. You know, in Latvia we have 13 ministries and about 100 state institutions, 119 local municipalities. And if I now say to these, all these institutions, look, here are the architecture principles. Please be so kind, read them carefully, try to understand, and then apply to your daily business. It will not work that way, sorry. You cannot expect that all these different institutions will read it as the starting point. There is well, reading is one thing, but the point is that you need to understand the principles, and there is no way that each of these institutions will understand these principles the way how we, as the authors of this architecture, think. And so what we are doing, we are engaging with these institutions. We are talking to them, explaining, showing the benefits, and trying to convince in many different ways. This is kind of leadership exercise again. And in doing this, if we do not succeed, our architecture picture will remain patchy. There will be someone who, for one reason or the other, are not ready to comply to these principles, and full interoperability cannot be reached that way. So we have to be innovative also in combining different methods of motivation, carrots and whips. One good motivator is ICT budget. And if you are lucky in such a way that you can control the ICT budget, and you can block development project which is not compliant with the architecture principles, this is really a good motivator, but it is a negative one. And so it's not good enough. You have to have also some positive motivators so that the institutions actually want to be compliant, not just because they want development money, but there must be more motivations in order for them to really move on. One more thing about the architecture. There is a temptation to make these architecture principles mandatory. But if you make mandatory the principles which are general, then you still cannot solve the problem of different interpretation of the principles. This is the example which shows that even explicit standardization does not help in creating unified solutions. Here in this picture you see the e-signatures in Baltic countries. All three Baltic countries have implemented electronic signatures. All of these implementations are based on the same international standards. Still, there are ADOC format in Lithuania, EDOC format in Latvia, BDOC format in Estonia, and these electronic signatures are not compatible. And now when our prime ministers come together and they want to digitally sign agreements between countries, it was a challenge for IT people to actually make bridges between these incompatible e-signature solutions. They managed to do like this. Well, 2 points. Even in situation like that, bridges are possible. You still can make it work, but it would be much better if we had one fully standardized implementation of e-signature. Maybe this is one of the points which need to be put in the digital action plan for the new digital single market strategy. My last point, building blocks. This illustrates the principle of reuse and shared use. And the principle of reuse and shared use is a good principle. We have also embraced that and put it in Latvian ICT strategy and in architecture. But here's one important lesson learned. If you want this building block approach work, then you must ensure that under each building block or shared service platform, there is a strong owner of this platform, the one who is really with full heart into the product he's serving. He's like a service provider to other state institutions. And if it doesn't happen, then, and actually if you create building blocks and then leave them unattended, then these building blocks will not be used and they will eventually die out. So by this, I will end. Just to sum up, two points. In order to reach the truly digital Europe, we have to work with people's minds. And we have to be more proactive in promoting and enforcing, driving forward common ICT architecture in Europe. And leadership is key for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Daugulis. And you really, like in a good old-fashioned manner, you blowed up into Twitter, because all the people are tweeting around about Brezhnev and saying no. So when you have a free time, you definitely can write a post, Brezhnev and Internet. And I believe that will become a blockbuster. Anyway, it is a pleasure to serve in one country together with brave public servants who are able to take the risk. To increase the ability to take the risk and be open-minded, we encourage you now to the coffee break. Coffee break is happening in the straight out from the door, just keep straight, there's a coffee. In the left side, we have IT Demo Center, so also the place you should visit definitely and see quite new, innovative stuff and things and touch everything and feel everything. So in the left side, IT Demo Center, straight down there is a coffee, and coffee break we have till 11:30, so 45 minutes for nice chat, totally waking up, and we are back in 11:30. Thank you very much. Coffee break time.